It's Jaap Kalkman from Skeena River Fly Supply. I hope you're doing well. We're gonna do a little video on my Seek and Destroy dry flies for steelhead. This is a dry fly. This one is a seeker in a low light variation. That's a dark color so that it shows up good in low light conditions. The other variation is bright light conditions, which is orange and brown. A bit natural color for during the day and clear days. I've designed this fly so that it always rides up. You never have to grease it, never have to riffle hatch it. It always floats. I've had this fly sometimes on for a season and it still floats. And I'm going to go over the details on how that works in the design of this fly. First we're going to cut off a short, maybe 1/4 inch section of 3mm tubing. Then we cut off about a 1 inch section of 1.8mm tubing in a chartreuse green. The 3mm tubing is a glow-in-the-dark tubing. And about a 1/2 inch piece of junction tubing to fit the 1.8mm tube. The end result that we're going for is a relatively short tube where the hard part of the tube is the front end that the deer hair gets tied on, and the bottom end, the tail end, is the junction tubing that allows insertion of the hook. First we're going to slide the 1.8mm tube into the 3mm tube all the way through so that the 1.8mm tube sticks out 1 or 2 millimeters in front of the 3mm. Next we clip off the excess of the 1.8mm tube and leave about 3 to 4 millimeters sticking out of the rear end of the 3mm tube. Next we melt a little flange on the rear end of the tube. Next we slide the junction tubing over the flange of the 1.8mm tube. So now we have an even body to tie on, with the rear end being a junction tube and the front end being a plastic tube. Next we melt a flange on the 1.8 and 3mm tube in such a way that the 1.8mm tube melts into the 3mm tube, and you see now you have kind of a little disc in the front. That disc will help to push the tube up in the water. Then we're going to place our tube assembly onto a mandrel. Then we place the mandrel and tube assembly into a tube holder and clamp it down. Tie in some 10-aught nano silk. Start the tying point right in front of the little flange on the junction tubing. That will lock it in. Cut it off. Wrap the thread a little bit forward and a little bit backward to thoroughly connect the front and the rear tubing. Tie in 2 strands of accent flash. Leave the accent flash sticking out for about an inch. Cut off a strip of foam from a sheet of foam from the craft store. It's about 1 or 2 millimeters thick and a little bit wider than the fly tube is wide. So I would say maybe 6 millimeters wide. Tie in the piece of straw foam so that it sticks out to the tail end of the fly, like that. Then we cut off a clump of deer hair. Tie in the clump of deer hair with the hair as short as you can manage. This is going to be the inside wing, which has to be smaller than the outside wing. 2 turns around the bundle, then pull and keep spinning. Then we're going to cut away the butt ends of the deer hair. Careful not to clip away the tail ends, the distal ends. Next we clip off a bundle of black deer hair. Then we tie in this bundle so that it's slightly longer than the flared hair of the previous bunch. So like that. Two turns, spin it, and keep on going. Like so. Then you bring that all backward and you tighten it a bit, bring the thread forward and secure it there. Then we clip off the tag ends again of the deer hair. Tidy it up a bit. Next, bring the foam back forward over top of the deer hair wings. Pull it tight and secure it. Then we fold the foam back again so that it forms a little flap in the front. That flap will act as a scoop. And we clip off the tag end of the foam. Cut off a small piece of calf body hair, little bundle. Tie in the bundle of calf hair on top of the foam back. And let the calf hair just stick forward like that. Then tighten your thread. And then it will flare up a little bit. Also keep the calf hair really wide, because that is going to add as a scoop. Like that. Put a drop of super glue at the base of the calf body hair and the thread, and work it a little bit up the wing so that the wing becomes a very stiff scoop that is going to hit the water and it's going to make it push up. Once the glue is dried, cut off the tag end. And then place a whip finish on top of the tie-in point of the calf body hair. And cut it off. Next, we're going to take the fly out of the tube holder, out of the mandrel, and we're going to trim the bottom end of the fly. Finally, we're going to cut off the excess junction tubing. Cut it off so that the junction tubing sits all the way in between the wings. Like this. So the hook sits quite a ways forward. You don't want it to have that hook trailing too far back. So that's my seeker of the Seek and Destroy flies. The Destroyer is just smaller, and I use that as a closer fly. If I raise fish that don't want to grab this and don't want to commit, then I'll follow it up with a smaller in the same pattern, same color, and usually that will do. It's a very good fly if you want your fly to be on top all the time and waking. The tube in combination with that little disc, the flap, the wing, and the way the wings are cut with a little bit in a down angle here, make this fly ride all the time. There's another trick that I'm going to show you now on way I rig it with my hook. So when I rig these, I rig them with a 15-degree up-eye hook. And I just attach that with a clinch knot. And then I pull that into the tubing in the rear, upside down. So that this forms a keel. The weight of the hook now is below the axis of the fly. And it will ride like that. That will help ride the fly. If it lands wrong in the water, say that it lands upside down, the moment it starts pulling, this fly comes around and it will track again. I also like the way this brings the point right in line with the fly for hooking. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that and found it informative. If you enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up, really helps, and subscribe to our channel if you want. Till next time.